Hi, this is Victor Cruz, Super Bowl champion New York Giants, and I gotta get my ICTV.
All right, welcome back, people. We are on for our second segment of The Rock is On. I am your host, The Rock, or some people call me as Rocky. And we're still going to be on the Final Four, and we're going to talk about the second game, the more intriguing matchup, which was between the Syracuse Orange, or the Cinderella Syracuse Orange team, and the heavily favored North Carolina Tar Heels. Now, going into this game, you know, I understand all the magical run that Syracuse went on, that was going on, and that all the NCAA violations they had to put up with, that Jim Boeheim had to put up with, and they were banned from the tournament and the NIT last year. They lost scholarships, and they were unable to, and it puts a dent to any chance of them recruiting any top player coming out of high school in the country. And and it was some bleak time. It was some dark and bleak times for Syracuse and their basketball team. And going into this tournament and you go back to Selection Sunday, a lot of people, they didn't give them the credit that they deserve. Everyone thought, oh, how did Syracuse get in? That's impossible. This team, Monmouth, or the whole 9 yards, was more deserving. But you know what? You give credit to Syracuse because they used all those doubters, all those naysayers as incentive to make the run they went on. But unfortunately, the magical Cinderella run came to an end. The clock struck midnight, and they were defeated by the Tar Heels, 84 to 66. And let's just jump right into that game. As a team, you give credit to North Carolina because they played the Syracuse zone so tremendously. Syracuse. If you watch college basketball, you watch Syracuse. They're notorious for having the famous 2-3 zone. They defend the space well. They defend the areas around the paint well. They play good trap defense. That was evident against Virginia and the Elite Eight. But this Carolina team was just so potent and so dynamic that it was too much for the Syracuse in their zone to handle. Because check this out. This, despite, and I give Syracuse credit this though, in the game they took away Carolina's number one asset, and that was the 3-point ball, and they were held to 4 of 17, which is 24% behind the arc. And they missed, and North Carolina missed the. If you watch the game on Saturday, North Carolina missed their first 12 3-point shots. They missed their first 12 3-point shots. They were making them later on when the game was starting to get out of hand, but they missed their first 12 3-point shots. And you know what? Unfortunately, that was when you take away the three ball, it increases your chances of winning the game or winning in basketball. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case for the Syracuse Orange because you know what? Because Carolina, they were just so dynamic. They drove to the paint. They were driving to the basket. They were making shots in the paint. They scored 50 points in the paint against that Syracuse zone. 50. The big 5-0. And they were just disciplined and they were prepared for it. They made the extra pass. They drew whoever had the ball was drawing the double team. He made the pass to the guy wide open underneath the basket, and that just seemed like the saga or that just seemed what the plan was for North Carolina going into the game. And it just seemed too much for the Syracuse Orange to handle. And also, I give Roy Williams, the head coach of North Carolina, tremendous credit for this thing, handling the full court press, unlike Virginia in the Elite Eight. Because in the game though, Carolina knew that Syracuse was going to make a run. Once they started making some shots, they were going to get back into it. They were going to get back into the game. They were, and it was just going to be a grind throughout. But you credit Roy Williams and that coaching staff of the Tar Heels though, of where the ball should go and how to play the press cup, how to play the full court press. Because North Carolina, it was like a rocket ship going up and down the court. When Syracuse applied that full court press late in the second half of Saturday's game. And the thing is, the problem is with full court pressing, if it works well, and you're able to get a trap or a steal, it's phenomenal. But the problem is, with full court press, you have all your defenders, or most of your defenders, defending the inbounds and trying to like trap a guy or trying to steal the ball that you leave the other side of the court wide open. So some guy can sneak past the defense and get a wide open and get an easy open layup or dunk. And that's what Carolina did to perfection on Saturday. But in the game, Carolina was led by Bryce Johnson, who had 16 points, followed by Justin Jackson, who had 16 points as well, and star point guard Marcus Page had 13 points. But credit once, like I said numerous times in this segment, credit Roy Williams and that coaching staff of North Carolina, because they knew going in that the pressure was on them. They were the heavy favorites. Syracuse was making this improbable run as a 10 seed, the first ever 10 seed to make it to the Final Four. And you know what? They took care of business. And now, tonight, they play Villanova, the 2-seeded Villanova Wildcats, for the championship. And this is Roy Williams' third championship as the coach of the Tar Heels, and his fifth championship overall as a coach. He was the coach for 2 championships when he was the coach at Kansas, or he coached the Jayhawks to 2 championships during his tenure there. Unfortunately, came empty-handed twice. Once to Mike Krzyzewski and Duke in 1991, and then to believe it or not, Jim Boeheim in 2003 to Syracuse. But he came back to his alma mater the year after he lost to Syracuse in the 2003 championship game. Beat 1 year. It was a down year his first year, but then they came back. They beat a potent Fighting Illini team. With Luther Head, Darren Williams leading the way with the 3-point shots. So they won in 2005 in St. Louis. In 2009, they beat Michigan State in Detroit. And now they're looking to get their third title. Roy Williams is looking to get his third title as a coach. Something that the legendary Dean Smith never even did. And now we're moving on to our championship predictions. And you know what? I gave it some thought over the last few hours. And I would just say that I'm going to go with the North Carolina Tar Heels over the Villanova Wildcats. And I'm going to give a score. I'm going to say 77-71, because North Carolina, if you look into it, they have that coaching experience. They've been there before. Roy Williams knows what it takes to get that team over the hump. I don't know if the Villanova Wildcats are going to be or how can I say it? I don't know if they're going to have that. The moment's going to be too overwhelming for them, because this is Jay Wright's first trip in the championship game. He's been in the Final Four back in 2009, who lost to North Carolina, but he was in the Final Four when he lost to North Carolina, but I don't know. I just think Carolina, they have the experience, they have better talent. Now, I'm not depriving Villanova, because they deserve it, because we all saw what they did to Oklahoma, and they just dismantled that Sooner team, because they can score and they can play defense. We're fully aware of that, but I just think North Carolina is a far more better team than Oklahoma is, and I think North Carolina is going to get the job done. And I think another thing is, I think Villanova is not going to be able to defend the 3-point shot like Syracuse did, but I think North Carolina will get their players will get good looks tonight behind the arc, and they'll just make threes consistently. And that concludes our second segment of The Rock is On.